The room glittered like a jewel box held up to the sky, all crystal chandeliers and polished marble. But the moment he fell, the light seemed to drain from everything at once. 1 second the billionaire stood beneath the glow, a symbol of success and control, and the next his knees buckled, his body folding inward as if the weight of his life had finally become too heavy to carry. The music faltered, glasses paused mid-air, and a silence spread through the gala like a held breath that did not know whether to break into screams or prayers. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of ordinary people to change extraordinary moments, take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this are reminders that compassion still matters. The gala had been planned for months, an annual charity event hosted by one of the richest men in the city, a man whose name filled newspapers and whose signature could change the fate of companies overnight. He had built towers of glass and steel, employed thousands, and donated millions. Yet tonight the applause felt thinner, more performative, as if everyone sensed something fragile beneath the surface. He smiled for cameras, nodded at compliments, and moved through the crowd with practiced ease, but inside him something was fraying. The past year had been relentless. A business betrayal had cost him not just money but trust. A marriage that once looked perfect on magazine covers had ended in a quiet, humiliating separation. His doctor had warned him about stress, about the heart not being a machine, but warnings were easy to ignore when the world expected you to be unbreakable. Across the room, moving almost invisibly between tables, was a waitress named Alina. She wore a simple black uniform that blended into the background, her hair neatly tied back, her posture careful and respectful. She had learned to be invisible early in life. Growing up in a small apartment with a sick mother and a younger brother who depended on her, she learned that survival often meant not drawing attention, not asking for more than you were given. This job at the gala was temporary, just another shift to add to the long list of shifts that kept the rent paid and the lights on. She was not supposed to stand out, not supposed to be noticed, and certainly not supposed to be part of the story of the night. The collapse happened near the center of the room. At first, people thought it was part of the performance, some dramatic pause or misstep. Then they saw his face, drained of color, his body trembling as it hit the floor. Panic rippled outward. Guests stepped back, afraid of getting involved, afraid of doing the wrong thing, afraid of the sudden reminder that wealth did not grant immunity from human fragility. Phones came out, hands hovered uselessly, and security began pushing through the crowd, their movements urgent but uncertain. Alina froze for a fraction of a second, her tray balanced perfectly in her hands. She had seen emergencies before, small ones, like customers fainting from heat or stress, but this felt different. This was a man whose life was always surrounded by layers of protection, now exposed and vulnerable in front of hundreds of eyes. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with recognition. She recognized the look on his face because she had seen it on her mother's face during long nights when pain overcame pride. She had learned then that hesitation could cost time, and time could cost lives. She moved before she fully realized what she was doing. The tray was set aside, forgotten, as she knelt beside him, ignoring the murmurs and the stares. She did not have a medical degree, but she had experience, the kind that comes from necessity rather than training. She checked his breathing, steady but shallow, his pulse rapid and irregular. She remembered the basics she had learned in a community first aid class years ago, taken because her mother's condition made emergencies a constant threat. She signaled for space, her voice firm even as her hands trembled slightly, and for a moment the crowd listened, surprised by the authority coming from someone they had barely noticed before. Security arrived, then medical staff. But in those first crucial moments it was Alina who kept him stable, who elevated his legs, who spoke to him calmly, reminding him to breathe, to stay present. She focused not on who he was, but on what he needed. The cameras that had once been pointed at him in admiration now captured something else entirely, a waitress on her knees, holding the line between collapse and survival. As the paramedics took over and wheeled him away, the room slowly exhaled. Conversations resumed in hushed tones, speculation buzzing like static. Some praised the efficiency of the staff, others whispered about scandals and stress, already turning the moment into gossip. Alina returned to her duties, her hands still shaking, her mind replaying the scene. She did not expect thanks or recognition. She had done what felt necessary, what felt human. The next day, headlines exploded. Billionaire hospitalized after Gala collapse. Questions swirled about his health, his future, his empire. Buried in a few articles was a mention of an unnamed waitress who had acted quickly before paramedics arrived. Alina read those lines during a break at her second job, a small cafe, and felt a strange mix of pride and discomfort. She was not used to being part of something bigger than her daily struggle. She went back to work, to cleaning tables and pouring coffee, to worrying about bills and her mother's next appointment. In the hospital, the billionaire lay in a quiet room, machines humming softly around him. Doctors explained that he had suffered a serious cardiac event, exacerbated by stress and exhaustion. He would recover, they said, but only if he changed his life. Lying there, stripped of his tailored suit and public persona, he thought about the moment he fell. He remembered the blur of faces, the fear, and then the unexpected calm that came when a stranger's hands grounded him. He asked about her, about the waitress, and learned her name. Recovery forced him into stillness, something he had avoided for decades. In that stillness, memories surfaced. The years of chasing growth at any cost, the relationships neglected, the moments of kindness deferred for later. He realized how close he had come to leaving everything unfinished. The thought unsettled him more than any financial loss ever had. Weeks later, when he was strong enough to leave the hospital, he asked to meet Alina. The request was handled quietly, without press, without spectacle. Alina was nervous when she received the call. She almost declined, worried about missing work, worried about stepping into a world where she did not belong. But something told her to go, not for him, but for herself. They met in a simple room, far from the glitter of the gala. He thanked her, not with grand gestures, but with sincerity that surprised them both. He told her that in his moment of collapse, she had reminded him of something he had forgotten, that people mattered more than appearances, that life was fragile and precious regardless of status. Alina listened, unsure of what to say, her instinct to stay invisible battling with the knowledge that her actions had mattered. What followed was not a fairy tale transformation, but a series of small, meaningful changes. The billionaire began restructuring his life, delegating more, prioritizing health, reconnecting with people he had pushed away. He also made a quiet decision to invest in the community that had shaped Alina, funding first aid training programs and healthcare support for families like hers. He offered Alina opportunities too, not as charity, but as recognition of her potential. She chose carefully, continuing her work while pursuing education she had once thought impossible, supported but not defined by his help. Their lives intersected occasionally, not as savior and saved, but as two people changed by a shared moment. Alina's confidence grew as she realized that her worth was not measured by her job title. The billionaire's perspective shifted as he learned to see beyond numbers and headlines. The story of the gala faded from the news cycle, replaced by the next sensation, but its impact lingered quietly in the lives it had touched. Years later, Alina would look back on that night not as the moment she saved a powerful man, but as the moment she stopped believing she was powerless. And he would remember it as the night his life cracked open, letting something real finally breathe. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion can appear from the most unexpected places, take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder of humanity, and subscribe to the channel so these stories continue to reach those who need them most. Before the ending, please comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. In a world obsessed with status and spectacle, it was a quiet act of care that changed everything, proving that sometimes the smallest hands hold the greatest power, and that even at the height of success, It is kindness that keeps us standing.